Hello guys, we are back today with another video, and in this video I am going to do a walkthrough from my perspective of the React Server Components demo repo. Now this is going to be like the first time that I actually run this, and so I won't have any prior information about or knowledge about this repo. So this is going to be a video where we go through it together and see what this thing is actually doing with the new server-side components concept from React team. So right now I am using a fork of the original server components from React repo. Why? It's because in this fork the database is stubbed with some sample functions, because the database is really not really the points of the React Server Components repo. Because if you want to run the original repo, you'll have to, you have to use the sample database if you want to use it. So like here's the original repo, and if you want to use the database, you have to use like some sort of SQL database set up locally. You have to create a database, connect to the database, and all that, and seed it with some sample data. So this repo here is a fork of that, except that you won't need to do all that database stuff. So all the database will be replaced by stubs. And with that said, I cloned the repo earlier, and I was able to install it and run it. So one key thing about this repo is that you need node 14 or higher if you want to run this. So it's pretty much a requirement. So I tried running on node 12 and it didn't work. So I had to get the latest node, which is 14.9, in order for this to work. Looking down at some of the package requirements, you'll notice that the React that's installed is a very experimental version. So right now it's doing some sort of experimental tag, and the React DOM is also experimental. React Fetch, FS, and PG, so all of these, even the Webpack server, is all experimental. So if you remember from my last video, that this concept is still a very early stage. They are still developing it, and they just want to put it out there for transparency, and they want to get people's feedback on this idea. So that's why everything is in experimental mode. So down here you have a couple of scripts. So we are going to just run the, we'll check it out what happens when you do a local dev versus a prod dev. We'll do an npm start on local, and there are a couple of babbles and pretty much standard stuff. So yeah, with that said, once you do npm install, you can start the server by doing npm starts. And this will start the server at 4,000. So I went to 4,000 localhost, and this is what I see when I run the app. So it's pretty much looks like a single page app, sort of. You got meetings, you can click on it to see, stuff in there, and then you can click on edit to edit the text, and then you can save or delete the notes. So it's like a Evernote clone, I would say, but very minimal. And you can also click on here to get some sort of preview for what this notes is about. And lastly, you can do like a search. Nothing, notes, yeah. So you can, do search. So it looks like a standard single page application in React. But let's dig into some of the things that they mentioned in the announcement in the RFC. So let's inspect this code and see what's going on. So it may look like a single page app. Let me refresh everything to get started. So let's see what happens when you click on the actual notes. If I click here, you'll see, let me zoom in a little bit so you can see better. So if I click here, you see that it's actually making a request to this weird URL called /react !location. And then you get like a bunch of stuff in there. So it happens every time when I click on the notes, right? And if I do a search, like every single keystroke makes a new request. And it actually caches it. That's pretty interesting. So if I type in notes again, there's no new request because it cached it. So if I do ABC, like you see new requests all of a sudden. That's interesting. Seems like it's making like a good old server-side request, but it's not reading AJAX because everything is hitting the same endpoint. And as you can see, nothing happens now because all of these are cached. But if I click on another node like this one, you see a new request. So let's inspect this request and see what happens. Interesting. So this is going to a URL called /react, and then with a bunch of data passed into it. And it's powered by Express. So let's see if we can, let's see what the datas are. So data is select the ID 3, is editing false. This looks like a bunch of states to me. Maybe that's what it is. But let's look at this /react route. So in the code base, they broke things up by server side and client side, I guess. So if I want to go to, let's find out what this /react route does. So if you go to api.server.js, it seems like this is like where you define a bunch of like express routes for this app. So if you go to react, there it is. So this looks like it's a GET request to /react, and it calls this send response function. So what is the send response function? You got a request result and redirect to ID. So that's an interesting parameter. So if you have a redirect, it redirects you there. So location, you get the location of the query. So it's getting the location value, this query string. So if the location is there, you do location.select the ID, which is 3 in this case, and it will take you, it will set the location value to the redirect ID if that's passed in. Otherwise, you'll just set the, you set the header for X location, so you should see an X location here, and that's exactly the same as the query param. And then here's an interesting function, render react tree. I don't know what this does, but it passes in the response, and an object containing these 3 values. Select the ID is editing search text. Sounds like I said earlier, looks like state variables. So what is render react tree? Render react tree, so it waits for Webpack, and then it creates a manifest variable, and then it refile sync from this folder. So what is this folder? Build React client manifest.json. So this file looks like it's reading the stuff on this file. And this file looks like it has like a definition of where each client-side files are, the location of each client-side JS code. Interesting. So it will get the manifest from this file, and then it starts a module map by parsing the manifest file. So the file we saw earlier. Let's see, go to build. So this file, it parses it, and then it says pipe to node writable react.create element, the app. That's another function, which I have not much information about. What is this? Ooh, it's a stream, I guess. I see. So it's some kind of stream to file, and you're creating some sort of like all these elements from the module map. Okay. So it's rendering the React tree like that. Interesting. So it sort of returns like the parsed version of the DOM from the server to the client via Express. So that's very interesting. Okay. So anyway, let's look at the thing we saw earlier, right? So every time when you actually visited these things, you won't see a new request anymore after you click on these. Let me do it again. So if I refresh, I click on something, you see a new request to that location, another one, But if I go back to this one, you won't see any new requests because it's cached in the server somewhere. So let's see how this is done. There should be some sort of cache variable. There it is. So there's a cache.client.js. And as you can see, all the files in here are separated by either .server.js or .client.js to denote that whether this file should be run. And you should see some files without the .client or .server. I think this means that this component can be shared on both the client and the server, which is amazing. Okay, let's look at the cache.js. So this is a client-side cache utility. You make a new map, and then you... Okay. So you got a couple of these unstable cache functions from the React library. So unstable get cache for type, unstable use cache for refresh. Use cache. Okay, let's see what this is called. Use server response. You stringify the location. Okay, so each request becomes a stringified location. So this here, you stringify this value, and then that becomes the cache key. So you look for the data in the cache, and if you get the cache, you return the cache. Otherwise, you create from fetch. So this is, I guess, this is where you create a new cache, right? No, response. Okay, you go to the server, you get the data you need, set it to response, and then you set the cache key to that. Okay. And where is use refresh used? I don't see a use anywhere. Okay, so it's in notes editor. We will come, well, let's see how this is used. Use refresh. Huh, that's how it's used. So what does that do? Refresh cache equals unstable cache refresh. Then you return another function. You refresh the cache. I guess this is cleaning out the cache, clearing out the cache. Okay, interesting. All right. Well, that's like a basic walkthrough of what's going on. We already saw a bunch of new things that we probably never seen before, and it's certainly interesting. Let's see. Let's go over this file from the beginning to the end and see what's going on. So there's a API.server.js. That is where this app will hit on the back end, and where all the logic are defined. So you got a handle error function, and then you got a... So the root path, you handle the error, you wait for a sec, and then you get the built HTML, which is this file here. So that's like the built file. You send the data back. Okay. And we are in the tree, we went over that. Send response, we went over that as well. That. Notes path, the location of all the notes. As you can see, like some of the things are outputted to a real markdown file in the directory, in the notes directory. So this is what they use as storage, I guess, not a database. And they're just writing files out loud, like writing file to the path. So when you do a post, when you make a new note, it will send the file out to this path. Same thing when you're doing updates, deletes the file, and then you get the note. Here you get a note of specific ID. Here's like the utility function where you just do a set timeout of how long you want to wait. I guess to simulate a slow request. Here you define a couple of public directories, static directories, and here's the error handler. Here's the part that's interesting, like wait for Webpack. I guess it's waiting for Webpack to build this file, and then it'll keep retrying until this file is there. So that's cool. Alright, so that seems simple enough. I don't know what this package JSON here is. Okay. I have not seen that, but that could be like a mono repo, some sort of setup. I'm not sure. Okay, let's go to the source file. So you get the app.server.js. So this looks like a React component, except the things that are missing are like all the lifecycle hooks, all the client side reference. Like it's pretty much a very dummy rendered server components. And you have a bunch of components. So I guess you define the whole layout of this app, a bunch of components, and it's using suspense here to simulate slow loading time. So let's see. Let's say I'm on a slow 3G connection and I click on make a thing. Oh, that's one cache. Let's do it again. So I should see some sort of like loading bar if I'm on a really slow connection. So I click on that. Oh, I guess I don't see anything, but it's supposed to render the no skeleton components while I'm waiting. Okay. So we went over cache. So here's the stub. So this fork here, it's pretty much simulating a database connection. So you got a bunch of databases here. You got to insert like other CRUD operation, including the search operation, to simulate a database. And that's what a database is. It's pretty much an array. Let's go to edit index client first. Is the standard render to the roots. Okay. So what I'm really interested is this location context. So I want to see where location context is used. The edit button. So if you go back to the edit button, so here, like if I open a notes and I want to edit it, let's look at what the requests are going to do. Let's say I click on edit. So same thing happened. It sends a location request with some data about this particular note. Let's go back to online, and it starts rendering this thing via a new page request, and it's using this extensively, right? Like this use location. Like what is it doing? When you gotta click on the edit button, it calls this start transition function. That's new to me. Start transition comes from unstable use transition. So that's also from this experimental version of React. And it's calling start transition. I guess this is the magic behind this server-side rendered component, where if you need to get new data from the client side, you call start transition, and then you set location. I guess set location is setting the value you want to send to the server side. Like it will send this data to the server side, and here you're sending the value that it's expecting. So what is it? Use location. It starts a new context, and then it calls use context of that value. Interesting. So you export the location context, and here it exports use location function. So that's the magic behind this thing. Like this thing here is the new stuff. When you click on the client side, usually when you do this, you make like an AJAX call to the server, and the server will do something, and then you handle the response. Now here, it's completely there's completely no need for doing all that. So this /react !location is the key to this whole thing, and it's able to get this to work. So let's say I change something, and I click on done. So I added this D character here, and so here I got an extra payload. I guess this is a put request, right? Yeah, it's a put request. and I added a new body and title. And on the server side, it sets the value of that somewhere. I want to see if I refresh and this change stays. So if I refresh, click on make a thing, and here. So I wonder where this is stored. I mean, it couldn't be the server. It couldn't be the database because the database is fake, unless make a thing. So link to React's websites. Yeah, so this is new. Like, it's not from here. I wonder where they're keeping the new data. Oh, there. Okay, so it saves the new version of this data in this notes folder. So let's make another change. So if I make a change here, press done, it should be another file. Yeah, there it is. Great. Okay, so I see what it's doing. So when you do that, it sends a request to the /location, the React folder, to the /React route, and it will do the magic where it does like the updates and stuff. Now, what I need to understand is, where does it call? Like, how does it know which function to call? Because there are like a get, a put, you know, like all of these requests, right? So like, oh, okay, so it does like a put request to ID. So the weird thing is, when I see here, okay, so there is a put request to /notes. Okay, and then with the location stuff, I see. So it's sending a request to these areas, and then you update the stuff, you write it to the local file system, and then you send a response. I see. So yeah, that's really interesting. I don't think I'm gonna go to all of these other components. They look very simple. Notes list. Like, as you can see, it's very cool that you can like just call directly from the database and then just render the stuff out. Like, it feels like PHP back in the day, but at the same time, this is React. So yeah, this is, I kind of understand how this app works now. But there is the main magic is this location stuff right here, and I really want you to take a look at the edit button client.js, because this is where the magic is happening, and this is where this new stuff, these unstable functions, are being used. So if you really want to understand what they do, look for unstable and look for where these files are being used, and you may be able to understand the context and how they work. So another thing from the announcement is that they say that the bundle size is going to be very small when you actually do this with the React server-side components. So I kind of want to see, like, if I want to run the production build, so npm run start prod. So I wonder what happens here. So you start at 4,000. Okay, so Webpack is building. Okay, there's Webpack. So that's the wait for Webpack thing. And now I have the production version of this app. So if I refresh, it's, as you can see, that's really interesting. So now you get the bundled version of this app, right? So I want to see the size of main.js, because right now, so let's see, what's the file? So it's like 49 kilobytes. So what they mentioned in the announcement is that the stuff that you use on the server side only will not be bundled into this client.js. This means your code is going to be very, very slim, and anything you need will be loaded in dynamically. Like, it's really good for the web. Like, your app will be significantly smaller, and you're able to do like crazy stuff, like, you know, but with server-side components, and you don't have to worry about, like, you know, let's say you have a component that's used on the server side only once, but in the old concept, well, not old, but like current React, you have to bundle that to the front end even when you do server side rendering. So with this, you don't have to do that. Like it will just load the minimal and bring in stuff on the fly. I think that's what it means. Okay, it's getting a little too long, but I hope this is a good walkthrough of as well as my first impression into this React server-side components demo repo. And I hope you guys enjoy it, and let me know what you guys think in the description below. And don't forget to like and subscribe my channel. I'll see you guys next time.